Welcome to the third class of this fresh start in 3D modeling with special focus on products. In previous classes, here's what we have covered. In class 1, we learned some fundamentals about 3D design. We went through the Blender interface. We learned some important modeling tools and we understood how subdivisions work. In class 2, we learned how to model 3D products, starting with cylinders as our primitives. We also practiced by modeling 4 different products with their detailed covers. In this class, we'll learn how to create holes and extrude new shapes from an existing mesh. There are several ways you can take part in this series and also support the series and the channel at large. First, you can kindly subscribe to the channel to get more classes and to get notified for subsequent series and 3D content. And you can also join my 3D community on Telegram for more conversations, tips, challenges, resource sharing, and growth opportunities. Then you can also grab the Fresh Start bundle of clay image references. It consists of over 25 clay product references to help you practice and model more products after you take part in this training. Also, if you're into NFTs, you can patronize my Vogbot NFT project on OpenSea that has a crazy utility where I create a free animated fashion NFT for every piece sold. The first technique we'll be using is to insert the face of this area, or any area you want. And then when subdivided, it will form some sort of circular shape. So if I select this face and I hit I just to insert the face a little bit, and then I can extrude this inwards. So if I add a subdivision surface modifier, this is what we should have. So let's go to our object mode and change the shading to smooth. So I right click and change shade to smooth. And I'll increase the levels here so we see what we have properly. So here, as you can see, this sort of created a circular shape. So if I wanted to affect the shape of this circle, I can simply I'll select this loop. So I'll hold Shift and Alt on my keyboard, then select this loop here. So with this face is selected, I can adjust the entire shape of this extrusion. So let's just put our subdivision surface back on, and I'll go to my scale tool to demonstrate this. Now if I begin to drag this in only on the y-axis, you can see that that shape is affected. Another way to do this with this type of surface is to bevel your point. So with beveling your point, you can create different types of shapes, and you can also create a perfect circle. So in my edit mode, I'll make sure I'm in my point mode, and let's start with this point here. So the tool we'll be using is our bevel tool. We can either use this or use our shortcut, which is Ctrl B. So let's use this here. So first, make sure you're on vertices here. You can go ahead to just create a bevel this way. And then before you do any other thing, just bring this option up here. Now tweaking these settings will affect our shape in real time. And if I add segments, that also now creates a star-like shape. Now if I want to start adjusting the shape here to look like anything I want, I can come to shape and then I can just drag this inwards or outwards. Now let's say this is the shape we wanted to extrude. So we're good with this. Then the first thing you want to do is connect the points properly so that we have a smooth topology when we subdivide it. So I was quite intentional with the segments I chose. So I can be able to connect this point to this point here. This is already connected. I can connect this to this, this to this, this, and this to this. Then we'll also connect the point inside. So if I select this point, I'll just go away from the bevel tool and I hit J on my keyboard. It will join those points. I'll do that for the rest. I'll select these 2 points and I'll hit J on my keyboard to join those points. Then I'll just do that for the rest. Now this way, I'm sure that when I subdivide, the shape here will flow properly within this box. So let's extrude and see what we have. So I'll go to my face mode and then I'll select all these faces. And then I will first insert the face and then I can extrude this inwards. So now if I add a subdivision surface modifier, let's go to our object mode and change the shading to smooth and increase the levels here to 2. So I'll have this type of shape created. If I wanted to create a perfect circle, I'll go to this point and again I'll just bevel this point out. Then I'll bring this option up. Now the settings to use here is to first increase your segments to 2 as we did before. Then for the shape, just change that to 0.1 and that will almost be like you starting with a disk. So now let's join these points then extrude to see what we have. So I'll select these faces, I'll insert the face, and then I'll extrude this inwards. So let's put our subdivision surface back on, return to our object mode and see what we have. Now the next technique we'll be learning is the Boolean technique, where we can use one object to create a hole on another object. Now for this particular object, we won't be using the subdivision surface, as I've already used the bevel tool to make these edges round. So I'll use this cylinder here to make a circular detail on this shape. Take note that we're not trying to subdivide here. So this is how you might work sometimes when you're trying to be efficient with your mesh, because you have a flat surface here and you don't want to add lots of subdivisions. So let's change the shading of the circle to smooth. So the way to simply do this is you take whatever shape that you want to use for the hole, and then you drag it inside to go as deep as you want this way. Then you select the main object that the hole will be created on. Then you add a Boolean modifier over here. Now the first thing you want to do is to highlight this object as the one to create the hole in this surface. Here I'll set this to difference. So on that object here, you can just select this eyedropper tool and then select this object. So before I go ahead, because I'm not using a subdivision surface to smoothen this out, I want to get rid of this artifact. So I'll make sure the cube is selected this way. Then I'll go here to the object data properties. Then under normals, I'll check auto smooth. So now to see the hole we've created, we need to hide this cylinder here. So you can either select this cylinder and hit H on your keyboard, or you can come over here and then just hide it here. So I'll hit H on my keyboard. And then now you see that has created a hole for us here. If you want to keep adjusting the shape of the circle, you can always go back to your cylinder, bring it back in, and then you can go to the object properties here. Under viewport display, come down and then change display as to wire, so we can see through our object here. So if I just hit S, I can keep scaling this and then see what's happening with the circle. So I'll just drop this here. Whenever I'm done, I can go to the modifier, and then here I'll hit apply. So now we can get rid of this cylinder and our detail will remain on the mesh. The next thing we'll be doing is to use the Boolean tool, but still work with good topology and subdivision. To do this, we need to make some observations on our mesh and then work around those observations. And I just want to make a circular extrusion just around this area here. So what I usually love doing is to first identify a box for me to work within. So here, there's currently no box I can identify, so I'll create mine. So I'll make sure I'm in my edit mode, then I'll add a loop cut here, and I'll add another here. Now remember, I want to add it around this area, so I have 4 faces here, and then I want to extrude a circle from it. If I wanted to try any of the previous methods, they won't work on this type of surface. So now this area is the box I would love to work with, this area here like this. So first, create another loop cut at the center of our imagined box, this area here. So the technique we'll be using will be to take a cylinder that has the same number of vertices as we'll calculate here, and then extrude that inward so that the points will join at the right areas. So to be able to know the number of vertices we'll add for our cylinder to create the hole here, you can count that this way. So if I'm working within this box here, I'll use these edges to calculate. So I'll calculate this edge here as 1, this one here as 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. We already counted this. So I haven't done that. Create a cylinder with 8 vertices. So take your new cylinder you've created now and then scale it to this point. So I'll just go to my wireframe shading mode so I can see these divisions I've made. So what you want to do is to take this new cylinder and move it into the previous cylinder here. And we'll let the middle line of our new cylinder match the loop cut we made at the center of the previous cylinder. So if I go to my solid mode, here's what we should have. Now let's apply the Boolean modifier. So I'll select this main cylinder. Under add modifier, I'll select the Boolean modifier. Here I'll set this to difference, and then I'll just use this eyedropper tool to select this object. Then if I hide this cylinder, you see what that has created for me now. But we can't switch to the edit mode yet to see what this has done until we apply the Boolean modifier. So let's go over here to apply the Boolean modifier. So if we switch to edit mode now, this is what we should have. So as you can see, our new circle has now aligned with the lines or calculations we made. So the next thing we need to do is to ensure that these vertices are merged. So as you can see, we have double vertices here. But please take note, we are merging the vertices of the previous cylinder to this new one we've made so that we don't affect the perfect circle. If I select this first, and then I select this second, and if I right click and then go under merge vertices, I will say merge vertices at last. So to merge that first point I selected to the last one I selected. So I'll do that here again. So if I select this first and then I select this second, I right click, I'll select merge vertices at last. So let's do that for the rest also. Select this first and we'll do merge vertices at last. Remember, trace this point and then select it first and then merge it at the last selection. So the next thing I want to do is just to get rid of these faces here. So after this, I will select this loop here and then I'll use my extrude tool this time. I'll go to my extrude tool here and I'll go to my two properties over here and I'll make sure this is set to normal. So I'll just extrude this forward a bit and then I'll use S to scale this down, say it this way. Then I can extrude this again this way. The next thing I want to do will be to make this area flat. I'll go to my orientations here and I'll change this to normal. I'll go to my gizmo tool to make sure that's normal. So that should be facing this direction. So I just need to scale all these edges to 0 on the x-axis. So if I hit S, then X, then 0, it should scale that down to 0 on the x-axis. So now if we add our subdivision surface modifier, here's what we should have. Go to my object mode, I change the shading to smooth and then increase this. And then you see here, this way we've used the Boolean tool, but we've made sure our topology flows appropriately. Thank you for joining this class. In our next class, we'll learn how to model a complete kettle by applying lessons we've learned from our previous classes. So ensure you subscribe, and remember you can support this initiative by grabbing the product reference bundle in the description below, and you can also support by getting a Vogbot NFT on OpenSea, where you also get a free and limited fashion NFT for every piece bought. All this information can be found in the description below.